demonstrators once again hitting the streets from Wisconsin to Washington Square Park to protest the latest police shooting of an unarmed black man. Jacob Blake in stable condition this morning after being shot 7 times in the back in front of his 3 young children. He was reportedly trying to break up a fight between 2 women when police responded to that very scene. Police have been under scrutiny since the murder of George Floyd in May, but their aggressive tactics continue. Here to help us understand why is a former cop and author of the book Blue Bias, Charles Hayes. Mr. Hayes, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us for this important conversation here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get into it here. Jacob Blake shot 7 times, like I said, in front of his children, ages 8, 5, and 3, in broad daylight. Why, in your opinion, do we keep seeing this kind of excessive force being used, particularly amongst black men?
Well, we had 2.5 centuries of slavery, 90 years of Jim Crow, 60 years of separate equal, 2 generations of redlining, so and nearly 200 years of a double standard in policing in the way black men are treated. America's cities, inner cities coast to coast, are the fallout of implicit and explicit bias.
Yeah, when you look at a situation like this in Wisconsin, right? And I'm listening to what you're saying very carefully here, because this town of Kenosha is 100,000 people. 11% of their population in that specific town is black, 17% Hispanic, 67% white. So, do you think there needs to be a training on how to deal with a black population, Hispanic population, when your police officers are mostly white?
Well, yeah, sure, but the incident with Jacob Blake, I've watched it several times. I can't figure out why weapons were drawn, let alone used. I mean, it just seems, it's baffling to me.
Especially because, according to what we know, that he was responding to reports of 2 women fighting, right? So, and he was trying to break up that fight. When the police showed up, shouldn't they have been de-escalating the situation rather than escalating it?
Well, you would sure think so. It's like I say, it's baffling. I can't figure it out.
So we've seen these protests all summer, right? But nothing seems to be changing. In your opinion, how can the Black Lives Matter movement make policing actually more effective if they sit down at the table, you know, socially distant, of course, and have this conversation?
Well, yes, sure. I mean, this has been going on for generations. What's hard to get across is that you don't have to have hatred or animosity towards a group of a race of people in order to treat them different. All you have to do is treat them different, and it can mean the difference in life and death.
So what do you mean then by blue bias that you speak of in your book, right? You say it starts the minute that cops enter the training academy, or is it actually subconscious bias that people have before they even become cops?
I use blue bias in a very different context.
Oh, explain, yeah, please.
The way I use it is more or less an attitude of doubling down on your oath to protect and serve. I mean, bias is what brains do. I mean, we categorize from the time we're children till we're old age. But like I say, you don't have to have animosity towards another group of people to treat them differently. Mm-hmm. If a police officer sees something in somebody's hand, he's more apt to think it's a weapon if it's at night. He's more apt to think if it's a weapon if the person is a man instead of a woman.
If that person's a person of color?
Yes, and if he considers the neighborhood a bad neighborhood.
But that's their opinion,
and if he's
right?
Right, and if it's having a bad day, I mean, there's just a whole algorithm worth of situations that complicate the matter.
I think we as a country and we as a people, and we're seeing it play out on the streets right now from all races and creeds and ages, that we look for these explanations, right? We want to understand Eric Garner, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Jacob Blake, and so many countless others. But I want to specifically zero in on Breonna Taylor for a second because the cops who killed her back in March have yet to be charged. You have a theory now about what likely led them to shoot the 26-year-old first responder in the first place. I'd love to hear it.
Well, I mean, 3 things jump out of me about that case. The first one is I think the warrant was an overreach. The second was there was an officer that shot 10 times into a door that he couldn't see the other side. And the third thing was that they didn't give Breonna immediate medical attention. As for the reason they shot, I mean, somebody in the apartment fired first.
Again, I think we look for that was a no-knock warrant, though.
Right, right, and like I say, I believe the warrant was an overreach to begin with. I mean, it was predicated on something that the post office was supposed to have said that they didn't actually say, or when they went back and asked them about it.
Yeah, I think this conversation, we could have this conversation all day long. You know, I think so many people are looking for this conversation. And like I said, look for explanations. And so I urge them to read your book. Charles Hayes, thank you for joining us. The Blue Bias book now on sale. And thank you for your thoughts this morning.
Thank you very much.